Well, thank you so much, Louis. Appreciate that. My first question is going to go to all three of you. I'm going to ask for an answer, just a 1-minute answer from each of you. And it's picking up, I'm just going to get loose on here. It's going to pick up, I believe you have microphones next to you. Do you? Great. On a point made by, on the topic of hear and do, and starting small with practical things. So my question for each of you is, what one joint project would you like to see between Nigeria and South Africa, or Nigeria, South Africa, and Zimbabwe, a joint project in the practical hear and do space? If you could wish for anything that could be done, what might it be? A business project, marketplace, or government-related project? Zinzi, looks like you're warming up. Just hold it on for a bit, it'll come on, yeah. Great. Should just all check that your mics are on. That'll be great.
Right. Nigeria, South Africa, Zimbabwe. I would like to add America.
Thank you.
Or Africa diaspora.
Uh-huh.
Maybe because I'm also linked to the US. The African Union has identified the Africa diaspora as the 6th economic regional community. So when we were in the US, when we had the meeting this year in Wall Street, most of our brothers and sisters, they want to come back home to motherland. They want to come and partner with us. So the question is, what is it that we are ready to do with them? The area that I'm looking at is, or that I'm suggesting, is maybe agriculture. The food quality in the US, it has gone down. So maybe we need to start maybe in agriculture, doing vegetables. It can be cashew nuts. There's also cashew milk that we can start producing for the US market. They are ready to come and do business with us. And how do we then connect with our brothers and sisters from South Africa? They might have the technology as well, and they do have the technology. So how do we start working together? Okay. So that's one area. And then I'm still very passionate about the fund. Let's do it. We can do it. Let's start with what's in our hands. Is there. We can start coming up with a fund.
Good. Okay, so agriculture and a fund, a Kingdom fund. $2 billion Kingdom fund was your challenge.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, great. Louis, your response on that?
Yes, I had 3, and 2 of them are exactly the same. The first one was funding and banking. Or shall I say finance and banking? Absolutely. The second one is commodities, specifically mining. And the third one is agriculture.
Okay, excellent, great. Okay.
Again, coming from where, the space I'm in today, I think the things that are top of mind for me are, one, the special economic zones. That's an area where I think South Africa has had some very good experience, and we could work together. And it's a live project, one that I welcome collaboration on right away.
What are your thoughts about doing a Kingdom economic zone that crosses borders? Do you think it's feasible?
If there's a champion and the champion is willing to stay with it, this thing about doing again, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Doing involves staying with it.
So what are you doing in 2 years' time?
Well, just tell me who will be the champion.
All right, good. Okay, I do think it's important to think long term. I think it's great, and but to think beyond our borders. So that's great. Excellent. Okay, so that's the first question over there. So now a question for you. Okay, what one thing would you wish for in terms of intra-Africa trade, exports, imports? What's one thing that you would wish to see?
Again, since we are talking South Africa, Nigeria, and Zimbabwe, one of the sectors where we've talked a lot, but we haven't done enough on is the auto sector, the automobile sector. Because that's an area where South Africa has done, much. and where I know both at the government to government level, business to business level, there is interest, but maybe we can do more in that area.
Okay, excellent, good. Well, Zinzi, you spoke about it's old-fashioned to not partner, basically. A question for you is, what's been your best example of Kingdom business partnering?
Well, it has been working with a team in Silicon Valley.
Okay.
They do have it's a fintech, right? Creating a bank, which is really what we are working towards at the moment. So coming up with a disruptive technology, especially in the micro-lending space, which the Lord said it's highly exploited. People have been plundered and no one is saying restore, restore. So access, affordability is the key point. So that's what we are working on.
Wonderful. Great. Excellent. Okay. Here's a question which I'll just toss out there and I'll see who wants to take it. Why is the church more focused on economic expansion than human development? Do you think that is accurate? And what's your response on that? Anybody? Going once, going twice. Okay, I actually think the question is the wrong question because when I say it's the wrong question, you want to answer it? Go. You want to listen to me? I'm not allowed to answer questions as the moderator. You go ahead.
About it. There are a couple of ways to think about our question. One is, when we say human development, I think the first thing to ask yourself is that what exactly is the church doing every Sunday, every week? You know, all these, I mean, if we're not doing human development, if we're not changing the way people think, which is why I look at human development, then what exactly are we doing? So that might also be an indictment, because if people are not being transformed by the messages they hear, by the lives they live, by the networking, then what exactly is church about? You would have thought that that is the starting point. And when we talk about economic empowerment, that is almost like building on that foundation. So it's not or, it's and, you know.
Great, excellent. There's a question here. There have been 120 years of prophetic words on Africa, again becoming a major trading partner. When the lost key is brought back or found, what is the lost key? What is the lost key was the question.
Brett, I have to give that one a parcel tomorrow.
Okay.
And I'll tell
You'll
you
have
why.
to come back tomorrow. This is like...
Because in the program you gave us a little bit more time, which we will deal with tomorrow afternoon. And
Okay.
I promise, Lord willing, we will deal with that quite thoroughly.
Okay, fine. Good. All right, that's fair. I have several questions for the minister. You're all ministers, I know. But for the trade minister, as it's over here. And I think, let me take this one over here. What are we doing to reward skilled artisans who, in spite of prevalent corruption, distinguish themselves by doing business with integrity?
You know, it's actually an excellent question, and I want to respond in a couple of ways. The first way I want to respond is what I already shared, which I just want to repeat or underscore or emphasize that, you know, I believe God said to me that if we will find honest people, that he will find ways to reward them. Whether they're artisans or they're CEOs, but, you know, Christians who will actually live a life of integrity in the marketplace, despite the odds. And what I took away from that inspiration I got, or that leading I got, was that God was challenging us, saying that he's not seeing enough people responding and living out their faith, you know, the way they should practically, as they face, you know, the challenges we all face in Nigeria. We know what they are. And I think the gentleman is asking that question, that who will reward these people. So the starting point is that, like, there's already, by reason of faith, we have to understand and accept that God is a rewarder of those that diligently seek him. And that's the starting point. Secondly, like I shared when I was talking about the principles of prosperity, particularly when it comes to workmanship and all that, we know. I mean, think about repairing your car. Who doesn't want an honest, like auto shop or mechanic or electrician or whatever you want to call it? I mean, it has been said that like the best advertisement for people, it's your work. Your work is your best advertisement when you are reliable. I talked about the principle of reliability before. But to give a final answer, wearing my trade minister's hat, since you mentioned that, one of the things we're very interested in, and we know that this is absolutely essential for Nigeria to move forward, is to create the connection between our workers, particularly our vocational workers, the industries and the employers and the government. And the glue, one of the glues that'll be there are, the so-called trade associations for those places. When you go to other countries that have figured out how to put people to work, train them as artisans and put them to work, they figured out how to form this partnership, this three-way partnership between government, business, and the sort of trade groups and trade associations, and then they link them into the training. So that the training is not being done just as a theoretical construct. It's actually part of a practical learning. And it's something we're working on. Those of you that attended the Nigeria Economic Summit will know that this was a topic on Thursday, at least when I was there. And this is something we must solve. It's one of the priorities of the Industrial Council. Because we have a crisis, actually. We have a major, major challenge in that area where there's a disconnect between our people and the training they are receiving and the needs of our industries and how to make sure that we close that gap. That's something we are prioritizing.
Excellent. Good. We have a number of youth-related questions over here, and I'll just package them up together. One has to do with empowerment. To have an impact, you need to be empowered. And Nigeria has a problem with empowering the youth. How can we be helped is the question on that. Similar question on mentoring. Needing a mentoring. How can one find a mentor to grow as a young person? And then funding being important for young people. And is there anything being done for a fund for youth when it comes to this question of partnering economic growth and so on? When Louis was speaking about the percentage of young people in Africa, I thought to increase the tax base, you're going to have to decrease the working date. They're going to have to start working when they're 12 or something like that. That's not serious. But we'll have to start with the youth entrepreneurs. So do you have any comments, anybody, on youth? Louis?
Yeah. One fund that's been very successful in South Africa is the Youth Fund, which is a fund that would provide a startup to any person under the age of 25 with a grant, non-refundable, of 50,000 South African rands. If you can present a business plan and you can present some form of offtake, some form of market sales that you have, and you cannot present a prototype, you cannot be involved in R&D, it must already be a go-to-market product.
Yeah.
That's been quite successful. And then there's a second layer. You can go for second round funding for up to 100,000 rands, which is not much in terms of building a big business, but in terms of building a micro enterprise, it is a good start. And that is if you could prove that your first 50,000 rands was used well, and you can get even a tax deduction for half of that 100,000, you can get that back. That had helped a lot of micro enterprises to be established. So
Super.
There's one case where I believe that that has helped.
Louis, if you don't lean on your arm, but just hold the mic up to your mouth. Yeah, it's not the mic. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thanks. I won't repeat. I will just continue. What I do like about the suggestion about a kingdom zone or a development zone, I think there should be more thought going into that. The more I think of it, the more I really like that idea.
Yeah, great. Super. Excellent. Okay. There's some question about diversity, hiring the right people, and the scripture says that two can work together except they be agreed. And so how can we foster trade, economic, and social partnerships in a multicultural environment, and also where there's, in Africa, intolerance, xenophobia, and so on? So there's a bunch of questions about the partnering across faiths and across worldviews, if you like.
Because I think that's an important question, and there were several questions there. Let me just return to that topic, since I don't know when we'll get back to it. I think two dimensions or two parts of the question. One was on mentoring and how you just encourage the youth. I think it's a very important subject, and one of the things we need are more role models, more people that our youth can emulate. We need to show, successful examples, because I think one of the things discouraging people right now is that, like, when they look around, the so-called successful people have not necessarily done it the right way. And so one of the challenges for us, and I include myself in that as we get older, is how can we live in a way that, like Paul, we can say, follow me as I follow Christ. So that people can see and you can demonstrate. And as they come closer, they will see that this thing is real. Touch me and see that I'm real. This is a very important and a desperate need, and I hope this is one that we'll just keep, working on. And I'm totally supportive of treating that as a priority. Certainly something I believe in, but I believe that we need many more champions.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to the funding point, it's such a desperate problem that I'll be the first to admit that, like, we haven't done enough. A lot more needs to be done. But I can assure you that a lot of people in government, I know the agri minister, for instance, almost every time we have a cabinet meeting, he's talking about the need for access, funding being available to almost like your youth fund, people who want to make a start. They can borrow at 25-30% when it's available, or the micro lending rate that our sister said is quite punitive and exploitative. And there are several things we're doing, and I just want to be sure that people are aware. First, as you know, this whole government social intervention funds are meant to at least give those people who are doing, whether they are artisans or people who are in the formal sector, some available credit. It may not be 50,000 rands, but it's certainly, whatever is 50,000, 100,000, whatever. But it's important that people are aware and they register if they qualify or if they're interested. There's also the whole Empower program, which is basically to make sure people have 1 year when they're training in something while they figure out what they're going to do next. And because it's a program that is trying to reach hundreds of thousands, for those that are in that age bracket or that stage of their life, there's no reason why one, shouldn't at least, avail themselves or individually of that while you're looking at other things. Bank of Industry, has a new, when we're thinking about a Kingdom Bank, I was thinking about Kayode Peter, who is the CEO of a Bank of Industry, even though he's a development bank and belongs to the country. But he brings a kingdom mindset to leadership and certainly wants to do more for SMEs. And I would like us, to work more with banks like that under the right leadership to say, what can they do? For instance, they have a target of raising up to 1 trillion, of which at least 10% must go to SMEs. So you can imagine 100 billion naira being available for SMEs. The Minister of Agriculture and myself, Chief Audu-Ogbe, spoke to the CBN governor because he has this SME funding. And he told us that 100 billion of that money is still available. So we're actually supposed to be trying to work out modalities for how can it become more accessible. Because he has this SME fund that is, people say they can't access. So I'm just trying to say there are several things going on, maybe through Pastor Ben or through the conveners. Maybe there's a way to make sure that, some of these people, that where there is a legitimate interest in gaining access or knowledge, or, that there is a way to channel those questions. So that it's not just academic, because I really think that we need to be more responsive.
Thank you. I wish that you told us that before the summit. We could have advertised the summit that 100 billion would be made available next year, 2018. We've solved our marketing problem, Ben. It's awesome. Great. Zinzi, Nigeria is taking sukuk bonds which are Sharia-based. Do you see the Kingdom Fund having similar instruments in the same light?
Absolutely. There are different forms of raising funding. So we can do bonds. But I'm in a space where I think we don't need to label Kingdom or anything. We must just do business. But it's the spirit behind it. And what is propelling us to do what we are supposed to do. And that's where I am.
Good.
Yeah. So it can be done.
Yeah.
If we look at, oil and gas, reserves are there. We need to start going in that space. And the oil fields, and maybe come up with resource-based or revenue-linked bonds that we can actually maybe go to Wall Street with.
Yeah.
So it can be done.
Okay,
We just
great.
need to collaborate, make sure that we are all clear. They're experts. It's good to say, I had a dream, but we need now to have the skills to be able to make it happen.
Great, excellent. A question for you. Okay, the concept of the new tribe is fascinating. How will they be found amongst the 180 million in Nigeria or the 1.2 billion in Africa when the market smothers them so effectively?
Starting point, and I'm glad that somebody actually picked up on it, because we want people to pay more attention to this new tribe. And like we say, change begins with me. First is, like I said, I mean, how many takers are in the room? Because we need to start this new tribe from somewhere. And let me also say, I see a man standing. I see a man standing.
That's
Okay.
2, that's 3, that's 4, 5.
You know, people, I mean, and on a more serious note, I do think that the reason why we need to come together is to exactly address this problem. You know, the way, I don't want to keep quoting the scripture, but it says, woe to the man who is alone when he falls. Who will pick him up? 2 are better than 1. And that's really the same principle of partnership. So he's saying, let's work together. Because as we come together, you will find that it will be harder for them to smolder us off. And there's an urgency in this because people are hungry for change. They want to do the right thing.
Yeah.
So we need to create these avenues. Incidentally, His Excellency the Vice President asked me the same question. I think I may have made that point. When he looked at this slide, he says, how do we get this tribe going? And it's the same question you're asking. And I hope that question will be answered tomorrow again. Because, this pray through and come tomorrow. I mean, tomorrow is filled in anticipation. So the new tribe must emerge tomorrow. And if it does not emerge, nobody must go home.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah, maybe let me just dovetail on that point. The Lord has been saying He's raising a Joseph tribe. So the Joseph tribe, that's the new tribe, yes, where it's about wisdom, discernment, understanding. Once we've got that, then we'll be able to interpret, the dreams that the leaders are having. We'll be able to interpret the Africa Rising narrative dream and make it into a reality.
Good. Excellent. A practical question for the Honourable Minister. What is your government doing to bring back to life our textile industries?
Before I leave it.
Okay.
The chairman of Apostle in Marketplace, where this theme has been raised twice now. It was raised last year by His Excellency Vice President. I raised it again this year. He's here. Shego Lujobi. Shego, I think you should stand up. So please, in terms of being recruited, this is the man to see. Because I just felt there has to be a practical answer. So Shego, as if you don't have enough work, you must accept responsibility for mobilizing this new tribe.
Good.
Now, I was asked about the textile industry. I'll say a couple of things on it. First is that it's an example of an industry that shows why we must be more competitive. Because the textile industry, in some respects, reflects everything that is wrong with Nigeria. Something that was thriving in the past that is no longer there. A place that is being pommeled, smoldered by smuggling. A place where, if you look at the value chain from cotton all the way to, finished goods, we ought to, play somewhere in there. And it turns out that that's why we need the special economic zones for SWAN. Because, for you to be competitive, you need to remove a lot of the cost that makes us uncompetitive, the things that make it difficult for people. And then secondly, we need to then, prepare people for the markets, not just the domestic markets, but also for the international markets. And incidentally, one of the special economic zones we want to focus on textile.
Yeah.
You know, we went to Ethiopia and we saw Hawassa Park, which is on textile, and is basically creating the conditions under manufacturing, Calvin Klein, you know, all those sort of goods that are sold in a high street. And Nigeria can do exactly the same thing,
Yeah.
and we intend to. So I think the short answer is that, like, there's a lot of work going into it. My one specific intervention is special economic zones. One of them is going to focus on textiles.
Great.
But we're also working, particularly in the north, you know, to revive some of these textile places that, you know, just suffered from lack of support going forward.
Excellent.
There's also funding available from BOI for textile, by the way.
Fantastic. Great, Louis.
Can I also comment on
Yeah.
that one? I would 100% agree. In terms of textiles in South Africa, there is the classic example
Please hold your mic up.
that we had a textile industry which was a flourishing industry. In fact, in the Western Cape, it was the anchor industry. It was the industry which was the first one that provided full medical cover for its employees and for its craftsmen. And with the import of Asian products, it wiped out that industry in the space of 15, 20 years, which is almost unrecognizable today. And after studies on how to revive it and how to resuscitate that, the only sustainable solution came to you have to partner between private sector and government to bring competition, tax, and development zones. Otherwise, you will not create that competitive advantage. So absolutely, I would agree.
Yeah. You know, one of the factors is creativity, the human capital, and the creativity has been, you know, it is reviving because of the creativity which I see here in spades. Last thing is not a question, but a comment. The King's Court you should be happy about this, Zinzi, somebody was listening. The King's Court, in partnership with City of David, should create the $2 billion fund suggested by Dr. Dillon. US $2 billion at minimum contribution of 5,000 needs only 400,000 persons, and it's done. The fund can then partner with the government in mechanized commercial, agricultural, or the power sector. So they've already decided how they're going to spend your $2 billion. And that'll make Ben's job easier and OK's job easier. So it's a win-win for everybody. So we look forward to that. Well, special thanks to the members of the panel, to the Honorable Minister. Thank you so much. It was a delight to have you. Apologies to those with the many questions we didn't get to here personally, but we will pass out these questions to the affected people and perhaps try to get some of those answered on the website. So thanks again. Well done. Appreciate your efforts.